Hello, Uta here. I can see that my hair dried kind of funny last night. I fell asleep with wet hair. um, yeah, I am just going to do a short one. I hope you can hear some of the Scott Joplin in the background. My guy is playing on his inherited Steinway upright that fits in my living room. I'm so delighted about that. If you want to woo a woman, it helps to be a musician. Yes, well, Neddy was a musician too. He played several instruments. When I first met him, he played the banjo. Yep, he was playing the banjo on the steps of the Union in Madison, Wisconsin. What I wanted to discuss um, in this one is my experience with this marital therapist that we went to in early 1995. I had been back for 2 years, and he had been secretly going to this PhD sexologist since July of 1993, which would have been 7 months after I had come back. I had left because of his suicidal ideation and his very difficult behavior towards both me and the children, but he coerced me into coming back. And I came back in January of 1993. So in about February of 1995, after 2 years of really uncertainty in the marriage, he had a beard, said he was not cross-dressing and all that stuff, but then he shaved the beard off, and there were suspicions. He was very strange about his bags the briefcases and stuff that he brought back from work. And at the time, I would be all excited thinking, oh, we sent in some film to be developed of our beautiful children, and where are the pictures and stuff. And he got really funny about his possessions. So what then I requested is, that he do what he had promised before I came back, which was already, years before, was that we enter marital therapy. And so there was this marital therapist named Marianne that we went to for probably less than 2 months, once a week. It was almost like we went in together every third week or something, and we each went separately. There was like a weekly appointment. He picked her. She was on, as I recall, University Place near New York University. That was where he was, close to where he was working, so it could be on his lunch hour in Lower Manhattan. And it became evident after about 9 weeks of this, I guess, that Marianne was operating on a completely different foundation. What I found out later was she was in touch with the diagnosing sexologist. And so there was a whole backdoor thing going on where this marital therapist, Marianne, was kind of coerced into having secret contact with this sexologist, psychologist diagnoser, who in her sworn affidavit submitted in our court process later stated and testified that Neddy was diagnosed in one appointment. Now, usually in the first appointment, they're just taking health histories and family history and stuff. So it's kind of interesting that these diagnoses are made in one appointment. So Marianne was actually, I think, coerced into a collusion of involving molding me such that Neddy could transition, and he was already taking estrogen, unbeknownst to me, secretly, despite his promises that if he felt this strongly about this identity thing, that he would tell me and we would try to have a civil divorce, because I had already said that's what it would be. So at one point, I said in this therapy, the last session that I agreed to go to, that, I don't think that we've processed out my trauma from August of 1992, when I found these cross-dressing diaries, and there were things in them that were very insulting to me. He was complaining about me a lot in these, and he was complaining about our beautiful children and surmising about what name he wants to take, and it was just very involved. And I was saying, I really think we need to process this out. And Neddy blew up. He was sitting on the other side of the sort of sofa that was in their office, and he said, "You'll never stop talking about this. You're just never going to let this go." And I was really expecting some support from Marianne to say, "Look, this is a really big deal, and your wife is still feeling traumatized." But of course, she didn't know. I didn't know that she already had been in communication, and that my husband was on this other secret path still, and that he was probably actually cross-dressing when he was claiming to be in his classes or at work meetings or on business trips. And so after this little demonstration of his anger in front of the therapist, I thought that she was going to say, "Look, is this the way you're treating your wife at home? This is quite an outburst here." And she didn't. She turned to me and said, "You're kind of like a Holocaust survivor. You just don't stop talking about it." And so she was apparently under the assumption that I was trying to stay together with my husband no matter what he decided to do. And she had information from him about what his plans were. And I wasn't in the same picture. I felt like, okay, this is therapy for Neddy and this invisible person, Ute. Ute's become invisible, and it's all about Neddy. And that was our adventure in marital therapy in this structure. And the reason I'm doing this now is because I had a comment recently comparing my divorce to any other divorce, say from someone who has difficult behavior because of ADHD, or has a problem with alcohol or substance abuse, or any other of the very difficult reasons why, a woman has to end a marriage. But I maintain that this is different. That's why a name, Trans Widows, has evolved. And to compare our divorces to someone with those other kind of problems, which are much more common, is not productive. There might be some similarities. I mean, all divorces have some similarities because they involved conflict. But the problem is that once in other therapy with a different situation, once the wife has said, "Look, what we're here for is to work out the separation and to try to agree on raising the children within the same context and to be good parents who are divorced, and get our children through this transition, this evolution." I don't even like the word transition anymore. And this is not what the field of psychology is doing in terms of affirmative kind of therapists at this point in time. They are pressuring the wives to try out sexual role play in bed. They are, by this I mean, asking a woman to pretend that she's a man and participate in sexual fantasies which have nothing to do with her own sexual desires. It has nothing to do with her fulfillment, and it's a great wide departure from what the relationship started out as. But we saw those women on Oprah. And I even wrote to her once and said, you know, you really need to present the other side. I volunteer. Here's my phone number. Oprah, I'm waiting for you to get in touch with me. By the way, that's a painting of the young Uta. So I have my, I think within normal bounds, female vanity intact. And, you know, a little bit of vanity, presenting yourself and caring about, you know, how you look is normal. But being obsessed with how you look and constantly looking in the mirror and wondering if you need, you know, another surgery or some more electrolysis, or whether your shoulders are actually not passing as female, or your hands are too big, or your feet are too big, which of course you know is true. That is obsessive narcissistic dysfunction. And that's all for today. Commenters who become insulting, dismissive, or otherwise negative towards trans widows who do not express compassion are not going to have long-lived comments on this channel.